everyone, and welcome to Mamahood Live. Today, we're going to be talking about a really important topic, which is sustainability. My name's Georgina, and I'm the National Trainer for Mama Mio. And today, I'm joined by Svanika from rePurpose Global.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's lovely to be here. Looking forward to a great discussion.
Yeah, I think it's such an important topic. Now's the time to be talking about it. Now's the time to be shouting about it. At Mama Mio, it's something as a company we believe in. We want to tread gently on the planet, but it's also something that we've heard from our customers as well. I think as soon as you start to become a mum, as soon as you start to become pregnant, you start thinking about like future generations, and you really just want to protect the planet for your kids, for that baby that you're growing. So there's things that we've already been doing. So over the last year or two, we've taken a lot of steps. So we have made all of our formulas vegan, which I think, again, is such an important step, especially even for people's lifestyles. So we're really trying to include every type of mama. If you're already vegan, then you know you can use our products. Another step that we've taken is that now, like, all of our cardboard packaging is now from SSC certified forests. So the cardboard is more eco-friendly, it's 100% recyclable. Again, just like all these steps that we can take that's towards more sustainability, towards more eco-friendly. Another kind of thing that I always love to shout about, just because I think it's quite an innovation. I don't really see many other brands or many other people talking about it nowadays. But last year we changed all of our packages. So our tubes are now derived from a biopolymer that's actually made from sugarcane. So it's 20% less plastic. It, of course, is still 100% recyclable, except for our pumps. So we have pumps in something like the tummy rub oil, which we're working on, but it's not recyclable yet. But all of these tubes are absolutely recyclable. And I think even the process to make the plastic produces less harmful emissions as well. So, I mean, we're just kind of trying to cover all our bases. But really, from like a brand perspective, that's why we're involved with you. It's why we're involved with kind of rePurpose Global, because we want to take that next step in our journey. We want to go even further. And that's, I mean, why we've teamed up with you and rePurpose, and we're trying to become carbon neutral. So I guess let me start talking about what we've done so far. And yeah, if you want to tell us a bit about like your role or your career so far, how you got into all of this.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think that's a very broad question. But before I get started, I think, congratulations, I think, on all of the lovely achievements. I think each of these you rattled off so many, Georgina, as you were talking about it, but each of them is so substantial, right? There's so much good that comes out of like each and every step that we take. And I think that the key thing that like people, like, all of us just need to realize is that there is no silver bullet, right? Like, I wish there was something out there that we just said, I waved my wand, I did this one thing, I have this one certificate, I did this one campaign, and now we're good, right? Like we are planet positive. But I think that that's really not doable, right? Because I think in the manufacturing process, in the consumption, and there's so many different layers, so many different ways that we impact our planet, and so it's really kind of a journey. And I think it's really kind of like you start somewhere and you're kind of like constantly building towards that kind of end goal of being kind of like more neutral and more planet positive in general. But yeah, I am very excited to kind of have you be part of this journey, have rePurpose be part of your journey as well, with getting certified plastic neutral. So yeah, that's just kind of like a quick context there. So Georgina, you were asking kind of how I got involved with the plastic waste space, right?
Yes,
Um,
yeah. How did you
yeah,
start all of it?
yeah, it was actually quite a coincidence. So, for all the viewers out there, I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at rePurpose Global. We are the world's first plastic credit platform, but I like to think of ourselves, as this kind of coalition of brands and consumers and organizations coming together to take collective action on our plastic footprint, by really kind of pushing the needle forward when it comes to scaling up plastic waste solutions. So we work right now across the world and in, 27 different countries. We have impact projects in 3 different continents doing many different things to remove plastic from our oceans, to set up waste management supply chains in areas that don't have any at the moment, to kind of keep plastic from ending up in nature in the first place, and to even invest in and scale up kind of alternatives to plastic, exactly as you were talking about, Georgina, kind of maybe biomaterials, other type of substitutes that can become more mainstream in the future as viable alternatives to plastic out there. So we do many different things, and I've been in this space. Feels like a long, long time now. I kind of have been living and breathing plastic for a long time, but it actually was quite a coincidence. I think it's a very kind of interesting journey that got me into it. So back when I was in college, I actually wrote my thesis. So I studied economics and in finance, and I was a kind of very kind of sciencey in that sense when I was in college. But I just happened to write my thesis along with my co-founders back then. They were my co-authors on that thesis on the topic of plastic waste recycling. So we spent the better part of a year going from kind of dumping ground to landfill to dumping ground, speaking to hundreds of people, thousands of people, really trying to understand why does over 90% of the plastic that we produce end up in nature and end up, even if it is recyclable, right? It doesn't get recycled. And you have all of these problems, especially when you think about kind of the UK and in the US and so on. We're pushing away all of our plastic to the global south, where over 70% often of the plastic that we don't recycle inside the country ends up going to Indonesia or Vietnam or the Philippines or any one of these different countries, right? And a lot of these countries don't have the necessary infrastructure to deal with their own domestic waste, let alone be kind of the rest of the world's garbage dump. And so we were seeing this, and for the better part of the year, we were seeing this in South America and Africa and Asia, seeing these mountains, these skyscrapers of trash that were just kind of like rising up, flies everywhere, dogs everywhere, and the people that the people, so that a lot of people don't know this, but there's actually a very vibrant informal recycling sector. So because as kind of like a society, we are just kind of like polluting with no regard, there's actually a very informal, unregulated sector that employs about 2% of the world's poorest people today in the global south, and in kind of this very exploitative thing where the waste pickers, they're called, the waste workers, they go into these landfills, into these kind of like skyscrapers of trash, and they try to figure out, can I pull out a piece of plastic that maybe I can recycle, right? Can I take it back? And then when we were doing, our research in the beginning, we were finding that not only are you seeing all of these massive amounts of environmental problems that were coming out of plastic, but you also had the social problems where you had these men, women, children who in this day and age have a life expectancy of 35 years or 40 years. That's it, right? Because of the horrendous conditions that they are working in today. And these little children who have no future in front of them because they get into this job when they're 4 years old or 5 years old, and that's all they do for their entire lives. And so we said, well, something really has to change, And I think that's basically that was my introduction into the space, where I think I got into it just to learn more about it. And I think at the end of it, it was like, there needs to be more. I've written this 200-page paper that like maybe 10 people will read, but just doesn't seem enough, right? Like I think it was so severe, so urgent, the action that needed to be done, that honestly for like my co-founders and I, it was kind of like, well, we have to start doing something around this. And so yeah, that was kind of like my quick journey into the space.
No, and I mean, I think it's this is why we're having these discussions, because as you said, like you've been there, you've seen this. For some people who live normal everyday lives or who don't have to write a 200-page thesis, they're not going to see that impact like firsthand. And so maybe that's why people, when they get to the end of their containers, they don't think, I must recycle this. They just think, let me pop it in the bin. So actually, I think it's a really important message that we're getting out, which is great to hear. So I mean, rePurpose Global as an organization, it does a lot of different, I know that you tackle a lot of different like areas and you have a lot of different methods to help the environment, but what does plastic neutral mean?
Yeah, so plastic neutral. So before I talk about plastic neutral, maybe I'll give you a little bit of context about plastic credits. in general, which is kind of the financing instrument in the middle and the crux of the plastic neutral certification itself. So when we were kind of looking at all of these different things, I think you have this kind of, again, we're always looking for the silver bullet, right? Can I scale up this one solution and waste is fixed? Our plastic waste problem is all good, but there really isn't that kind of solution. What we were instead finding was a lot of inspirational people, a lot of these amazing men, women, people around the world who had been trying for decades to scale up their solutions, but were all constrained by this one crucial component, which was just funding. And it seems so simple, right? But the main problem is just we're simply not spending enough money to push into the solutions that actually work. And that's it. That's kind of the main, very, very simple problem. And then so we said, well, how do you solve that problem? Maybe you introduce a new financing instrument. And so we looked to carbon credits. And then, I think carbon credits in their own right were quite revolutionary with the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Accords and so on, in being able to unlock capital for solutions that could combat climate change. And we said, can we learn from the weaknesses? Because I think carbon credits have also been, they've been done right, they've been done very wrong. So can we learn from what worked and what didn't work, and then apply that to the plastic space, basically? And so we spent kind of a long time essentially designing what a plastic credit is. And so essentially today, one plastic credit is the equivalent of 1 additional kilogram of plastic, nature-bound plastic waste that's eliminated. So 1 additional kg of plastic that otherwise would have sat in a landfill, sat in the bottom of an ocean, sat in a lake for decades to come, that is now instead recovered and ethically processed, environmentally friendly, recycled, and kind of like, we deal with it in a sustainable way. And so that was kind of the idea of plastic credits. And so the next natural question became, well, how do you kind of, how do plastic credits make sense? Because no one is just going to come, like, I'm not going to go in and buy 1 plastic credit, right? That's not kind of how you're going to do it. So that's where the plastic neutral certification comes in from, where we do see a lot of brands exactly like Mama, where like Mama Mio, where the brands are saying, I want to do something, I just don't know how, right? I just don't know what to do. And you've been kind of doing exactly as you said, Georgina, so many different things to tackle the plastic in your packaging, but again, there is no silver bullet, right? And so until maybe 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, we find that perfect material that can maybe substitute plastic. In a lot of cases, this is what we do have to use, but we still want to take responsibility for it. And so we had a lot of brands coming in and saying that. And so that's where the plastic neutral certification was designed, where essentially the first step, even for Mama Mio, is to kind of come in and measure your plastic footprint, right? How much plastic am I putting out into nature today when the products are being sold? So it's how much plastic is in the tube, in the pump, in the distribution, bubble wrap, like anything that goes into it. And then once we quantify the amount of plastic, then it's basically the second piece is using plastic credits to remove an equivalent amount from nature. And so today, what Mama Mio is doing when you are plastic neutral, because you guys are plastic neutral certified, I'm so excited about that, especially in time for Earth Day, right? I think that's fantastic. Essentially what's happening is, we have measured your plastic footprint, and you are funding the removal of an equivalent amount from nature. And so I was just running the numbers earlier. So with Mama Mio's plastic footprint and your plastic neutral certification, you are actually now removing the equivalent of about 2.5 million plastic bottles every year from nature. So that's 2.5 million plastic bottles worth of plastic that would have sat there for kind of like years and years and years had it not been for, for this specific intervention that you are funding on the ground. So, and we can talk more about that as well. Happy to kind of like give context and what impact projects you're really kind of funding on the ground and how rePurpose kind of is facilitating that too. But yeah, that's kind of the core idea of to say we've measured our plastic footprint and we're taking responsibility for it by removing an equivalent amount from nature. And then we're going to continue on to kind of like see what more we can do, because this is just kind of that start of that journey, and we still kind of have further to go.
It's so nice to hear. It's so nice to hear tangible numbers sometimes, because if you hear a brand or a company say they're recyclable, it's like, oh, okay, that's great. And I guess I'm coming from both sides, because as a brand, it makes me extremely proud that we've taken this step and we're teaming up with you to become plastic neutral. And so it does make me proud as a brand, but as somebody that uses the product, it makes me happy as a customer as well, because I can still do the small part on my side. I can still recycle my bottles after I use it, but actually knowing that even by me buying bottles, I'm contributing as well to that kind of neutrality of being more eco-friendly, more sustainable. So it's really lovely to hear, and I love those numbers. Um, how does it help the environment?
The project itself, yeah. So I think the project itself. So we do many different kinds of projects. So plastic credits, I think, is kind of this encompassing platform where we do many different things, right? So we have the first type of project that we look at is where you're literally removing plastic from the ocean, from rivers, from landfills, and then you also have kind of we do projects where we're building waste management infrastructure that stop plastic from leaking out into the environment in kind of the first place. And then so I think the kind of analogy that I use is, when you walk, you've been out for a night out and you come back home and you realize, oh no, my bathroom is flooded because I've left the tap open, right? You need to do two things, right? You need to mop up the floor because your bathroom is flooded, but you also got to close the tap and stop more water from getting into your bathroom. And that's essentially the same thing that we're talking about here. There's plastic out there in the environment that we need to be removing from there. But there's also plastic leaking into the environment every second, right? Like as we're talking right now, a few million pounds of plastic has leaked into the environment in the last kind of like half an hour or so, right? That kind of tap is still open too, and we need to be doing things to close that tap as well. And so when we talk about the impact projects that we have on the ground, we're doing both. We're building kind of supply chains and we're building kind of collection networks to stop plastic from ever kind of entering the environment in the first place, and making sure that we catch it and we take it right to the recycling facility, or we take it right to kind of like however it gets best processed, or we're kind of reducing it on the front end itself and reducing the amount of plastic that's coming in. And at the same time, we're seeing how can we remove plastic that's already out there in the environment. So you do have all of these different projects that are happening simultaneously around the world, depending on kind of whatever the region needs at that point. So if we are dealing with ocean coastal regions, we're doing plastic recovery. When we are dealing with kind of like more villages and village supply chains and towns and so on, urban areas, we're dealing with kind of like how do we build infrastructure that stops the plastic from entering the environment. And when we're dealing with innovators and change makers, it's more about kind of like how do we come up with substitutes to virgin plastic usage. And so all of this is, I think, very exciting because you have this wonderful environmental impact you're having, right? That is kind of like it's useful in terms of just protecting our natural ecosystem, protecting our wildlife, our animals and marine ecosystems out there, because so many animals die every single day because they mistake plastic for food, or they get caught and they can't breathe, or they eat it and they can't kind of like digest it and so on. And then you also have kind of the human impact of plastic that you're trying to reduce, where this is actually kind of crazy, for the mothers out there. I was reading the other day that the average person consumes one credit card's worth of plastic every single week because it's in our water, it's in our food, and it's gone to the extent where they actually found plastic in the placenta because so the mother was actually passing on plastic and microplastics to the baby in the womb itself, right? Because that's how pervasive our kind of microplastic problem has become too. So you are kind of like, protecting our own well-being at the same time. And then I think just on one other note, all of this also does include a very big social impact as well. And so like, Mama Mio is funding these projects on the ground where we're setting up waste collection networks, where we're setting up kind of infrastructure, and that's also employing people. That's kind of helping take people out of that informal sector that I was talking about before and formalize them, give them stable salaries, give them health insurance, give them financial inclusion. So much of like societal benefit comes out of this as well in the global south, in addition to the environmental benefit. And Mama Mio's project is actually very interesting because it's all female run. It's 100% women led, which is very, very exciting too.
Not only is it just our main customer, yes, it is, but it's empowering women and just really giving them a purpose and a role, and enabling them, giving them the power to make a difference to their life, to the environment, and to, as we've always said, like to their future child's life as well. So that baby that they're growing, it's really helping that. But I mean, so to support women around the world, like with the Mamahood, and it's really It's really just trying to make a difference as much as we can. And I like what you said as well. It is a big issue, and I love how repurpose is tackling it from so many sides. It's not just the one solution's going to fix it. There are many different issues. Can you tell us exactly where the Mama Mio's project is going, or like where it's partnering with?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So with most brands that we work with, the funding is basically tied to one impact project on the ground. So you very clearly see, I mean, this is exactly what I'm contributing to, right? This is the impact that I'm having. So Mama Mio's project specifically, right now for this year is happening in central India, and in kind of this place called Aurangabad, and it's kind of a landlocked place where there is not that much waste management that's going on at the moment. But specifically, what we're focusing on with this project is the low value plastic materials. So even when you have the higher value, because all plastic is not made equal, right? So you have higher value plastic like PET or HDP, for example, that get more easily recycled because they have some sort of economic value, and you can take a PET bottle and make another bottle out of it. But you do have kind of on the flip side the MLPs, the multi-laminate packaging. Think about your candy wrappers and your Oreo, your chips packets, and your crisps packets and so on. That really can't be, like you can't do much with them, and it has very, very low value to it economically speaking, and so nobody wants to take control of it. And so when you think about plastic that leaks into oceans, it's predominantly this low value plastic. Actually, it's predominantly these kind of like single-use multi-laminate, kind of single-use multi-layered plastic packages and pouches that end up leaking out into oceans, because none of your traditional infrastructure works for that, right? Your traditional kind of like formal waste management companies, or even any municipal recycling would not cover that. And so right now, all of these the MLPs and in these low value plastic materials, and in that kind of the city that we're working in, ends up being landfilled, or ends up being openly dumped, or actually, unfortunately, it ends up being burnt, where there's not enough land to kind of like, even store it in a place. And so the people just set fire to it. And that's kind of bad for all sorts of reasons, right? Because you're kind of like releasing, so these plastics release a lot of very, very bad gases when they are burnt. And so that's kind of like releasing toxic gases into the atmosphere that lead to health concerns. These gases lead to kind of like climate emissions and then carbon emissions as well. And so you have so many different problems that go with that. And so what we are now doing is creating this entire collection network to make sure that that plastic doesn't end up, with that fate, but instead is kind of like taken and processed in a very environmentally sustainable way. And so that kind of like collection network is what we're building now with Mama Mio's help. And then so this is kind of like being, again, run entirely by women. And then kind of it's a fantastic project because it's also kind of giving jobs to like now people who are able to kind of go, get formal employment to go collect this plastic waste from households, from different establishments, bring it back to their facility, and get it processed in an environmentally sustainable way. So yeah, that's what we're doing right now.
Amazing. It's nice to know where our kind of contribution or where our money is going. Really nice to know what precise ways that we're impacting. What does the future look like for Repurpose Global? What's your goals moving forwards?
Ooh, so many different things. I mean, if I had a goal, it would be kind of a planet without plastic waste, right? I think just kind of making sure that all of our plastic waste is being managed in the most environmentally sustainable and socially like ethical way possible. But we do have a long way to go, I think, for that. But I think for us, it's really kind of like saying we have this amazing solution that gives brands the opportunity to kind of take responsibility in a very immediate way, right? So we see kind of this being adopted by more and more organizations, and we're so kind of like thankful for all of the first movers, right, in this space, all of the thought leaders like Mama Mio coming in and saying, we'll take the stand first and we'll kind of like lead the sector with this, and seeing how we can get other brands into the fold, other organizations starting to create an impact, because it is ripple effects, right? It's not that, you are kind of doing something for your own plastic footprint, yes, but that also means the infrastructure that you have kind of led to the creation of will stop. Well, it's not happening just for today, right? That infrastructure will be helpful 5 years, 10 years down the line for that group of kind of villages and towns and those cities that we are helping. So there's a lot of ripple effects to be had. So for us, it's really kind of like, how do we get the word out and how do we get more and more brands to join this coalition that we're doing and get more and more consumers engaged as well. So for all of the kind of like just general viewers out there, we do have the plastic neutral solution for individuals too. So you can go on our website, rePurpose.global, and you can measure your own personal plastic footprint. It takes about 30 seconds. We have this calculator. You can go in and you can see how much plastic you are using in your food delivery, in your groceries, in your shopping habits, in your kind of, health, wellness products that you're buying and so on. And it tells you at the end, Georgina, you are using 100 kgs of plastic every year. And then you can take action on that at the price of like a coffee a month, basically. You will be able to kind of go plastic neutral as well, and then get kind of tips and tools from us on how to reduce that plastic going forward, right? How to kind of move gently towards a more plastic free kind of space, and then reducing the amount of plastic waste they're using too. So yeah, a lot of different goals and visions there, but I think it's really inspiring to see that we're all in this together, right? It's so inspiring to me that there's so much care about this in the world. Because I remember when we first started this organization, a lot of people said, this won't work because no one cares. And no, like people are not going to kind of like care enough to kind of participate in the way that you're talking about. Why would people do this? And I think I'm so happy that we've proven them wrong, right? That people do care. I think today plastic waste is the #1 environmental concern on people's minds worldwide. And I think consumers are actively, trying to do more and more to take responsibility on an individual level, but brands are doing more and more too, to really not just kind of, do things on a shallow level, but really go deep and then really kind of look at what are we doing? What is the impact that we have on the planet? I think that's been absolutely fantastic. So inspiring for us to kind of like keep going every single day, to see that the world is responding as well.
I absolutely agree. I think it's been fantastic just to hear the steps that rePurpose are taking, like as a company yourselves, and what you're able to do. It's really kind of fascinating to find out now that Mama Mio has joined along as well. So it's great to find out like what we're actually doing and how that's going to make an impact from our side, and like, how we can become plastic neutral and things like that. So I think it's really interesting. Hopefully everybody that's been watching along, you take a little bit of inspiration from this talk, and just know that when you're buying Mama Mio products, we're doing it in a more eco-friendly way. Remembering to, even just recycle your tubes at home. I don't know if everybody knows, but you can just cut along the top here, take off the lid at the bottom, rinse it out, so give it a really good clean, and then pop all the bits into your recycling bin. It's small steps that you can take. Maybe you want to do something, skip that one coffee a month and become a bit more plastic neutral at home as well, which I think is just a really great kind of ambition to try and chase. But yeah, I have no more questions on my side. I'm definitely going to go online and do the test, see how much plastic I'm using at home. But thank you so much for joining me today, Svanika.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to Mama Mia for for taking on this kind of really cool initiative. And thank you everybody for watching along. Again, we are so inspired every day by kind of people who care. And so I think thank you for actually caring, right? For taking that first step. And I look forward to, meeting more and more of you, on the rePurpose platform as plastic neutral individuals, as we go forward.
Perfect. Well, thank you for watching Mamahood Live. Check out some of the other videos that we're hosting out this week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.